Hello and welcome to the 22nd edition of the Bookbreakrs podcast. My name is Alan, and with me tonight is Paul, one half of the Fountains of Reason. We've
One half.
just one fountain tonight.
Yeah, the weather has got the better of the other half.
Yeah, the inclement conditions have robbed us of the other fountain. But he'll be back next week, so don't worry about that. Right. So this week we're gonna review the weekend action from the Premier League, and then we're going to preview the upcoming games as well. And as you're a United fan, Paul,
No better place to start. Yeah.
No better place to start than United Spurs. What did you make of it?
Well, I suppose if your back's against the wall and you need a result, I suppose Spurs is as good a game as any to have. I mean, I was desperately surprised at how poor Spurs were. You know, I wouldn't get too carried away with United winning 3-0 because that was a very, very poor side. I mean, Harry Kane, he's so out of form. It's shocking, really. You know, for a player who, you know, is usually so consistent with his goal scoring. You know, he's every season it's 20, 25 league goals consistently. Even when he's picked up injuries, I think he's only got one so far. But they lacked ideas. They didn't have a single shot on target. I mean, in a home game against a team that's just got walloped 5-0, you know, against a team that's conceded 14 goals in the last 3 games, to not have a shot on target. You know, I give some bit of credit to Solskjaer in that he finally decided that it was time to change something.
He reverted to type though, didn't he? Last season he was doing this back six kind of thing, and then relying on sort of the break or the pace to kind of, you know, score goals and take teams on. And this week, on the back of conceding 9 goals in 2 games, he's reverted to, but he's gone beyond his back six now with that was a back 8, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, even Bruno was playing a bit deeper than he usually does. I think it was just a stop the rot set up from them, really. And you know, like I said, Spurs were the perfect team because they're out of form, lacking confidence. You know, their star player is a shadow of his former self, a manager who was also under pressure and who's actually ended up getting the sack on the back of it. It's a funny old game of football, really, because last week, you know, they were talking about Conte probably coming in at United, and now Solskjaer has pulled out a result that's got the other manager sacked, and now Conte is going into that job. So
there's I heard Howe being touted around as well, but he's touted for everything.
Well, I was just watching Sky Sports News before we came on, and it does look a done deal. It's a really, really strange contract if you're to believe, because it's only an 18-month contract. Now, you know, Antonio Conte, in my opinion, is probably one of the best managers out there at the moment. And to only I don't listen, maybe the 18-month contract was his idea. I'm not too sure, but if it is true, it's not really, you know, let's just say that's the Spurs idea, a Levy idea. It's not showing a great deal of confidence in the manager. And I'm not so sure that the players that are at Spurs are necessarily good enough for him to have an immediate impact on, like Tuchel did at Chelsea last season.
Yeah, that's exactly what was going through my mind. If you go in there with a ready-made squad, like if it was a United manager, if you're given a job to, you know, Zidane or, you know, Ten Hag or whoever, you know, is being considered out there, you would say there is a squad there to win something, and therefore go win it in your 18 months. You know, get your feet under the table for the remainder of this season, and then next season you better deliver something. And actually, in this day and age, there's a lot of kind of reason to that. Like this whole idea of, oh, come in and give me 2 years to kind of build my team, and then give me another 2 years to win something, and then, you know, 5 years later, you know, most of them have won nothing, and it's like, well, why take that route, you know? But a couple of things on Spurs. So the Harry Kane thing, like subconsciously feels like he's sulking. Like obviously he's a professional, right? So you go out and you do what you should do, and you're getting paid shed loads of money. But it's very hard to turn off that little voice of, I've been screwed this summer,
Yeah,
and then go out and give it everything, isn't it?
I mean, I think a lot of it as well is probably down to a lack of supply and a lack of creativity behind him. Even Son hasn't been as consistent as he usually has. I think in general Spurs have been a bit wishy-washy this season. They've had a couple of wins. I think they beat City on was it the opening day? It was one of the early games, and I think it was the opening day, and kind of flattered to deceive. Then after that, he's not got a really creative number 10 type player behind him. I don't feel. I mean, Dele Alli's never really. It's a bit of a mystery, Dele Alli, because he was unplayable there about maybe 3-4 years ago.
Yeah.
When certainly when Poch was there,
He was the next Steven
there
Gerrard
was a
and all
link.
this
I
kind of
think
stuff.
there was one of those. Yeah, but he was like, I mean, he was getting 15 to 20 goals a season. They had a really, they made a Champions League final when he was in form and Kane was in form, Son was in form. They had a really good team when Pochettino was there, and he was clearly Pochettino was getting the best out of Dele Alli. The sort of player that I think Dele Alli is probably maybe in the Pogba category, where he maybe needs a little bit of an arm around his shoulder, and
or three or four.
Well, yeah, and I think Mourinho wasn't the manager for either Pogba or Dele Alli. And he's players who thrive on confidence. Really, there's certain players that they're just consistent form throughout their careers. But it's funny, really, because I never would have put Harry Kane down as one that lacked confidence or lacked desire or anything. But he's been very disappointing this season. I mean, the question you have to beg the question: would anybody pay 100 million for him?
Well,
in that form.
I mean, this is the beauty of it, right? Because Levy might have been thinking, I'll keep a hold of Harry now and try and get more money for him or whatever, or he was saying he wasn't getting the 150 million from, and then the whole Newcastle deal came through, and again Levy might have been thinking, let's make some money here, and then Kane is basically giving him the two fingers with his form, and like as you say, no one's going to pay 200 million for a player who is as inconsistent as he's proven to be now. If you spend 200 million, you want to know what you're getting every time you go out on the pitch, really, don't you?
Yeah, I suppose it goes back to the old saying, though, form is temporary and class is permanent. But he's going to be a year older. Let's say it's unlikely there'll be a move in January. I mean, unless City decide to break the bank and make a bid that Levy can't turn down. But I suspect that the Conte deal was probably something along the lines of, Kane has to stay at least until the summer, or he knows he's got a task on his hands with that team. I'm sure he's had one eye on the Premier League. I think he's got unfinished business there. I think
like you though, I feel like something when he left Chelsea, I thought it was very odd. And is there more to the whole Conte story that people just don't know about?
Well, the thing is, I mean, you look at him on the sideline and his passion, his enthusiasm, or his antics, maybe, I suppose you might say. But he strikes me as the sort of person that he could lose a dressing room very quickly, or lose elements of a dressing room very quickly. I don't think he get away with much with him. I don't. Didn't he get rid of? Was Diego Costa by text message? Or
yeah,
I don't. I think he may well be a little bit of Mourinho about him. Do you know what I mean? I think he doesn't. He won't pull any punches.
I'd say a little bit of the Godfather about him as well.
Yeah,
I'd say he's a fearsome fella. Like,
don't get me wrong. I think he's I think he'll do a better job there than Nuno did. I felt a bit sorry for Nuno, really, because he seems like a nice bloke, and he did a good job at Wolves, and there was almost tears in his eyes in the interview on Sunday. Like the players do have a
It's
lot to.
terrible. But it's terrible, Paul. What they did to him in the summer, they basically asked out every girl at the disco.
Yeah.
And then 12 o'clock came, and they went back to
I
Nuno, who
know,
was
I
standing in
know.
the corner, and now they've dropped him after,
But
10
he'll get a
games.
nice little payout from it. But 17 games, I mean, that's just ridiculous. That's not giving the man any chance. It's not like they were bottom of the league. They're I don't know, maybe 8 or 9, something like that. But only 4 or 5 points off top four.
Yeah.
It
I
was a
mean,
bit hard.
to
But
be
like you
fair,
said,
Paul, I think that they caught City on the hop on the opening day, and everyone thought the Messiah had arrived. If you take out a couple of the early results with the early manager bounce, yeah, it's been on the cards now for a long time.
yeah, it has. I mean, he obviously wasn't anywhere near the top of the list in the summer, and
Yeah.
I wonder how much is that little episode has cost Spurs. But Conte won't be cheap. Conte will want to sign his own players. Like I said, that squad isn't the squad that he's going to be successful with. I mean, Ben Davies, fullback. He's I assume Reguilon was injured or something, because Ben Davies is just a poor defender, if you ask me. I've
Yeah.
seen him multiple times,
I
even
mean,
for Wales, and I really don't rate him.
I think like they have a decent enough panel. You could see them doing something in that conference
Yeah, what is that
tournament
though?
maybe, but I know, but like to Spurs, any bit of silverware, and you could at least stop those, Spurs trophy cabinet memes that have been doing the rounds for
But
the last.
is the prize for that like a place in the Europa League next season? Because that.
You'll get something.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You win the Europa League, you get into Champions League. You win this Conference League, you get into the Europa League. I imagine there must be something like that. But I mean, it might be an avenue the Spurs need to go down to get European football next
Yeah.
season. I mean, there's a list of teams that are ahead of them. Arsenal are in form. Leicester maybe for once might be saving their best form for the end of the season instead of the early part of the
Yeah.
season. West Ham are flying. They've just had some Czech billionaire buy like a third of the club or something. So you'd imagine that they'll have money to spend in January. Could be a very interesting January window, because
I think it's shaping up to be a very interesting league. There's no team that are showing themselves to be invincible, and there's a lot of, as you say, previously you'd have had top four and then this kind of drop off, but now it goes back to probably 10 now, where any team in the top 10 could probably beat anyone else on their day.
Well, like it's as ridiculous as it is, and as ridiculous as it might seem to even suggest it, if United were to beat City on Saturday, they'd go level on points with them, and you talk about we're talking about sacking Solskjaer last week, and Guardiola is basically untouchable, and yet could be level with them. Although I really
was
don't
looking at
see us
that.
beating. I don't see us beating City on Saturday.
But that's why he hasn't gotten the boot either. Like if you were 12 points off City, then your season's gone. You're as well off bringing someone else in. But while you're still in the hunt, it's probably more harmful to swap this early. And it feels like maybe they've said now Pogba's going to go, and it seems like they're going to let him go. So it seems like maybe there's this argument of, is Solskjaer useless, or has he got some rotten eggs in his basket? And if you get rid of Pogba, I think personally you get rid of one of those bad eggs. And if they give that message to the players that, look, you guys will be out the door before he will, then you might see some attitudes change. And I know you don't like him, and his coaches probably aren't where they need to be either, which is another drawback for him. But still in the hunt.
I mean, look, the thing you have to give him like a little bit of credit for a couple of things. I mean, every time his back is against the wall, he pulls out a result. Now that isn't a group of players that isn't playing for their manager. So So clearly they like working with him. I think though that this is the danger with Solskjaer, and I don't want to harp on too much about United again this week, but the issue is he's always there or thereabouts. He's never quite in the race for the league title or the Champions League title. He can pull out results here and there, but at the end of the day, like
but Paul, in fairness, now I have to. I really feel that performance on Saturday was player shame from the previous week coming through. Was that Solskjaer who sorted all that out in a few days? I have my doubts, and I'm very worried about the City game, to be quite honest with you.
Oh yeah, I mean, unless he approaches it in a similar fashion and plays with that shape and probably that lineup, really, I just as much as I admire him for giving 100% in every game, Fred is just consistently poor.
He's desperate,
but he's consistently that team, and I think Matic probably I do like Matic as a player, but he doesn't have the legs that he used to either. And
he's no dynamism. Like, I was watching a bit of the West Ham game yesterday, and like Rice is a bit of stuff now, and I think there was he had that whole it's just because he's English that they want so much money from, and all this kind of stuff. But like, that lad, he's got a bit of verve, exuberance. He's up and down the pitch. He's breaking up tackles. He's starting attacks. He's scoring the odd goal, and he's enjoying himself. And then you look at you look at McTominay and Fred, and they are just if you saw them playing for West Brom, you'd think West Brom have a decent team.
Well, I saw something. No, sorry, I was just going to say I saw something in the United Liverpool game with McTominay, and he did it on at least 2, if not 3 occasions, where he's facing his own goals and actually turned and played a pass without looking, and lost. I think on one occasion lost the ball and to a Liverpool player just outside his own box, and I thought, like, that worried me to see a player. It was a panic pass. I wouldn't accuse him of arrogance. Like, I wouldn't say it was an arrogant thing to do, but it was certainly, it was surprising to me, and I'll be watching out for him doing that more often. It's just something I noticed because it was right in front of me. But they're definitely not the answer. He's a very good squad player, I think. And he can do a job in certain games. He's got great desire. Like, I do like the lad, but I'm Fred.
He's in the same camp. He's in the same camp as Rashford. They're United boys. They give it everything, but maybe their everything isn't a starting position or worth the starting position for Man United in a club that size. McTominay he's about a foot too tall to be playing in that position. Like,
well, that's why he doesn't play in that position for Scotland. You see, he's a centre half, and I actually think he might make a decent centre half. I've never really paid much attention to him playing centre half for Scotland, but
and it's been done before, like where people have dropped into that role.
Yeah, Michael Carrick did it very well, I think.
Yeah, but the problem is, right, in that position, with your face to your own, when you're facing your own goal, you want to be able to receive the ball and turn on a sixpence. And then you're banging a pass and you're breaking that line. He's so big that it takes him too long to turn, and his players are able to.
That goes back to what I was just saying a second ago. He was playing these no look passes and not in a kind of Bruno Fernandes type way where there's some intention to try and I'll glance this way and play the ball that way. It was really worrying for a player in that position to be doing something like that. And I think you're probably right in what you're saying. I think he's not, whilst he's mobile, he's an up and down the field sort of mobile. I think, in close quarters, he's probably not
exactly
not particularly good.
He's not tidy enough, and I think it definitely is a thing. Like, if you take the sport of rowing, for example, I think it is, or cycling, I believe like coaches, they don't necessarily look for someone who's brilliant at rowing when they're 14 or 15 or whatever. Like they look for a physique, a certain type of physique, and they
Yeah,
know
yeah.
that someone of a certain height and a certain build and a certain whatever, they can train them to be good. I feel like it's a bit similar there. Like if you take Jorginho at Chelsea, I think it's the perfect example, right? He's, he can receive the ball, lay it off, sees kind of peripheral vision's good, can
Yeah,
turn
yeah.
quick, can break the line, do 1-2s, all that. And in that central midfield, that's what you need. You need to break the line, get it, and then set those counterattacks off. And we have the pace then to actually bring the ball forward and do things. But I was watching that game on Saturday, and I just thought to myself, this is where this team is just stuck in second gear, because he hasn't even got a foil, McTominay, who can get him out of those situations. He's got Fred there, who's equally as limited and constantly giving the ball away. And his touch and everything is just desperate. I really feel like if you stuck Rice in there with, someone like a Billy Gilmore or something like that, not him, but
No,
that kind of type of
yeah,
combination.
but you're right, and this is, I think this is probably United's issue is because neither Fred or McTominay, or you could add Matic into that, are on their own good enough to play a holding role. If you brought somebody like a Kante or a Declan Rice into that side, not that I believe either player would come to United at the moment, or we would, certainly forget about Kante. That's never happening. I think Declan Rice's price tag is probably, a little bit the reverse of Harry Kane. He was probably available for around the 100 million mark in the summer. You ain't getting him for that now. Why would West Ham sell him now? I'm not sure if how much of a boyhood West Ham fan or anything Declan Rice is. I don't believe he is, but there's a history of players being legends at West Ham. Real, you go back to Bobby Moore and the DeCanios. I mean, even to a degree, Mark Noble. Do you know what I mean? He's a bit of a cult hero there, and I think Declan Rice. If West Ham keep playing the way they're playing, if West Ham stay in the Champions League places, it will be at United's expense, I'd imagine. I don't see
Yeah.
City, Chelsea, or Liverpool dropping out. So, it's
He's
he
very,
would answer the question really as how do we solve that problem? I think if you had a Declan Rice player in there, you free up your midfielders. You play another attack point. I think Pogba, for example.
yeah,
I think
yeah,
Pogba would really benefit from a Declan Rice,
yeah,
because he'd do all the stuff that Pogba doesn't do or
yeah,
can't do.
exactly
But
that. And the whole, you know, the race for Haaland and Mbappe and all these guys, like we probably have enough goals in the team. Fix that hole, and a Pogba would probably love playing with Rice because he could just go off and do his thing, and Rice would just clean up the mess.
yeah,
But he's more than that. He's more than just a mopper upper. I think he's really improving.
no, he is. He's
Um,
been very good for them. He's a bit of a key factor in why West Ham are doing so well.
yeah, and you have to go back then
Boise.
to Moisey, and I'm delighted for Moisey, to be quite honest with you, because he got, he
He had a
yes,
bad time after United as well. He was a Sociedad
he went to
and like
Sociedad, and he
was he
ended
at
up in the championship.
Sunderland?
Yeah, he
Managing Sunderland. No, fair play to him. He's done really well there, and I think there was a lot of questions after. He had years of relative success at Everton, and then he stepped up to the hot seat. And looking back at it, listen, I was calling for his head as well, because we were so used to being
no, but
first,
he
second,
no, but
first, second, third, and then you come seventh.
Paul, he had to go, because even in the
Mm,
interviews, he was like a dead man walking in the interviews. He
yeah,
he looked like a shadow of himself, and the job got to him, the club got to him. He's left. He went even further down. Like he could have crumbled really, and to build himself back up, and now have West Ham ahead of United with like a poor squad in terms of values of players, but clearly he knows how to manage
Yeah,
a team. You know.
a better group of players. And
Yeah.
I think Stuart Pearce is on the coaching staff there as well. I think like Stuart Pearce is he's he strikes me as a very vocal character. Probably the opposite to the likes of Michael Carrick.
Mm.
I think he's probably surrounded himself with some decent coaches there as well. And it remains to be seen. I'm sure the bubble will probably burst at some stage. But look, if United are to get pipped to fourth by anyone, I think I'd much prefer it to be West Ham than anyone else.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
David Moyes.
So we've gone on a massive United tangent there.
Yeah, can't help it.
The agenda has gone out the window. So just getting back to the Spurs game, we may as well go nuts now. So I think we're both saying, don't believe that result against Spurs. It was more
not
against
for a
Spurs
second.
being crap than United being brilliant.
United weren't brilliant by any stretch. There was a couple of moments of brilliance, like Ronaldo's volley. There's not many players in the world who can do that. There really is. Could you imagine that ball dropping over the top to, say, Lukaku, for example?
Yeah.
Lukaku doesn't bury that. As good a striker as he is,
very few people bury it.
Yeah, myself, probably.
I'd say yourself and maybe Rude, but only Rude in his pomp.
Yeah, it was just an exceptional bit of technique, and Cavani took his goal well as well. Rashford took his goal well.
Yeah,
it was very similar.
The big problem with that team, I thought, when I saw it, is like you're relying on Cavani and Ronaldo, who are two old soldiers, and they will not do this week in, week out. At some point, he has to coach and develop Greenwood. He has done that to an extent. He has to break Sancho into the team. He has to get Rashford, Martial more minutes, and Lingard, and that's why I'm worried.
Yeah, this is the problem. They can't play that system all season for a few reasons. One, they have too many wide attacking players, like you said, that need to get minutes, that deserve to get minutes. I mean, Greenwood, I think if you're going to play that system again, I'd give Mason a chance up front. I think let's see how he works in it too, because it's very difficult for him in the games where he has had a chance up front, play as a one. A single striker. I could never really get, and I think I mentioned this before, I could never really get my head around that 4-2-3-1 or anything that has a single striker isolated against two centre halves.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You really need a very good number 10 pulling one of the centre halves away, and I'm not convinced that would work for Mason, but playing in the two. But
their two lads are wily though, and Cavani is worth his weight in gold. But again, you won't be doing 90 minutes with this guy.
No, he won't. No, but the other side of it is United don't have sufficient number of quality fit centre halves to play with three on a consistent basis, because if any one of them gets injured, you've got Eric Boye, who will probably be injured and won't be able to come into the team anyway. But
the problem with the lineup was there's a risk that the likes of Greenwood, Rashford, Martial, and others will get the message that the slump in form is their fault.
Well, absolutely,
and you've retained Maguire and McFred and other people who are probably Shaw, Wan-Bissaka, who are probably more culpable, but yet they're still starting. And the only reason that's happening is because Solskjaer's gone back into his shell and what he's comfortable with, which is a back 6, 7, 8, whatever.
And I would, to a degree, say that while I think Greenwood has been made a scapegoat on numerous occasions this season, like first man taken off, and there is an element of Rashford and maybe even Pogba when he was playing on the left when Rashford was out, but Greenwood and Rashford, or Greenwood and Pogba, not coming back to help out the fullbacks, and there could be an element of that, and I'm sure somebody at United, or I'd like to think somebody at United, has analysed that, and maybe he felt that was a problem. But really, against Spurs, were we Did we need to worry about Spurs?
No,
I don't think we did.
and to be honest, hadn't they a goal ruled out, and they had a couple of
Yeah,
close chances. It could very easily have gone horribly wrong that game. But
I suggest that Atalanta will be a different proposition tomorrow night, and I wouldn't expect us to win that game. But listen, he may well do, because it's funny really, because we never really give him the credit when he does pull a result out of the bag. He has had Pep's number for a while. We always say he's lucky.
no, but
Uh,
the problem, Paul, is it's spiky, and spiky is bad.
yeah.
What you
Yeah,
want is this consistent.
we don't win anything with inconsistency.
No.
Nobody's ever won anything being inconsistent. So
Yeah.
we'll
As
see.
as
We'll
I
see,
said
see
to
how
you,
the derby goes.
I remember saying this in a previous pod. Under Ferguson and under Ferguson, we would win, 14 games in a row, draw a game, lose a game, and then go on another streak. So it was like this little, and then this,
Yeah,
and then a little. With Solskjaer, I don't think we've ever won more than 3 or 4 games in a row.
Yeah.
There was one streak at the start, but since then, just doesn't happen.
No, I don't think I'll ever be convinced he's the. Even if they won an FA Cup or something, he's never, ever, ever going to win Champions League or the Premier League. He's just not. He's not. He's not in the elite category of manager, and I still, it beggars belief to me that United don't have an elite manager. And I know you might say that we tried it with Mourinho and Van Gaal. Neither of them really were given the time that Solskjaer has been given for various reasons. Van Gaal was it was bad. It was some real bad football.
Is there a romanticism there that a bit like Fergie and a bit like Busby, that he'll come good, like he's one of our own.
If that's their approach to the whole situation, then they should all be taken out and shot. Because that is not the way to run a football club.
Yeah.
Do you think do you think Daniel Levy has any romantic notions, or do you think when
Solskjaer would have lasted 2 weeks probably with Levy?
Why? Maybe Daniel Levy is the man to take over as chief executive. Then I don't know. Although he's got shares in Spurs, I don't think it's just a job there for him. But you look back at any of the big teams, Liverpool, when Roy Evans was there. Roy Evans kind of just a bit of a club legend. He was there for years and years and years. But when push came to shove, no, you're not good enough. We need to get in a better manager. But
right, come here, Paul.
Yeah, we need to stop talking about United.
Right, Enda will be listening now, and he'll be like, "Jesus, are they ever going to shut up?"
We'll talk about Burnley beating Brentford very convincingly, actually, and another favorite.
Are you saying that you're saying that just to annoy him now? But
that was a bit of a surprise result for me. I didn't see Burnley.
I believe
I
believe I banked a double chance.
Did you? Yeah.
Or I banked. I think I napped or banked Burnley, I believe, but I fancied them because I was reading up on a few bits and bobs, and a lot of the teams Brentford had played so far were footballing sides. West Ham's, Leicester's, Chelsea's. Passing it around, all that. Burnley, turf moor, wet day, wet pitch. I just thought, yeah, they're not going to win there. And
yeah, I didn't see that coming myself. Now, to be honest with you, I like Brentford. Listen, we've spoke about it before. It's no better time to speak about it when Enda's not here. But I like Sean Dyche.
I know.
I like Sean Dyche. I just think
I like Brentford,
really
but I like Sean Dyche even more. I mean, I want to go for a few pints with Sean Dyche.
I reckon he'd be a bit of crack. He's got a very dry sense of humor, but no, he's done a really good job there with absolutely no money to spend.
Nothing.
And a very here's what you put a Conte or a Tuchel or a Guardiola manage Burnley. Would they do any better with him? No, not a chance.
And if you take even like Dean Smith at Villa now, right, who's been given loads of bobs to spend, and he's come up and he's done a brilliant job with them, but now suddenly the wheels are coming off, and will he get out of it or will he get sacked? Whereas Dyche has consistently, even when they've been in holes, dug them out, kept them up. And I think he'll probably do it again this season. Now he might have to
We,
buy a player or two, but
we have to give a bit of credit to the Burnley board there as well, or chairman, or who, I'm not entirely sure who
mm,
makes the big decisions there. But there was real danger of him leaving Burnley last summer. Um, and I think that they really understand that he is the man to get them out of these situations. I think he's a bit better than Burnley. I don't think Enda gives him enough credit. I mean, you play to the strength of the players
yeah,
that you have. If he had the players that say Chelsea or Liverpool or City
mm.
have, even United, they would. There's a question now. Would he
No,
would he do
no,
better?
no, no, no,
Would he
no.
do better?
And I'll tell you why he won't, because the players these days think that they have to have an elite manager. A
Hmm.
Sean
But
Dyche would
yet,
come
yet we
into
don't have one.
United and they'd go, "Oh, Sean Dyche, who are you? You're not good enough for us." Like that. That's
Yeah.
the kind of mentality you have these days. Like people, these players think, "Oh, Ancelotti or Conte. Oh yeah, like you've done something. Yeah, okay, I'll play for you." But like if your CV isn't up to scratch, like Nuno or whatever, not then your
Yeah, but
name's
you'll
not
get a
big
job at
enough.
United, though, won't you? There's the one club that
Yeah. Right.
you don't need to have a big ceiling.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
Sean Dyche, probably second or third best manager in the league, Paul. I think you'd agree with that.
yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
100%.
Cool. Let's move on. Let's move on to Liverpool. Um, I did have a sneaky suspicion, and so did Enda actually, that Brighton would get something. And I was basing that on injuries and their midfield. And they almost got 3-0, which would have been out of sight, but they didn't. 2-0, VAR disallowed a goal. And then
Brighton had a really good chance before Liverpool scored, though, and I
mm,
was just watching the highlights again earlier today, and I think it was Solly March um, broke through on goals, but not one Brighton player. They were just strolling along behind him. If some one of them had bust their gut to get
mm,
into the box for the pullback there, he had no option but to shoot from a tight ankle, and
mm,
it was a good save by Allison, but it was an easy save for Allison to make at the same
yeah,
time. And that is the thing. If you have like a top class striker, getting into the box there, they would have been
yeah,
leading
yeah, yeah.
against Liverpool, and that I think is really what they're lacking. But there's another manager who's done a very good job with fairly
Very
limited
good job. Very
resources.
good job. Yeah. And Enda
I
thinks, Van Dijk hasn't come back the same yet. Maybe.
happens a lot
Yeah.
though. Happens a
Mm.
lot. These serious injuries.
It's the age, though, isn't it? He's 30. And you get those injuries, and you
Is he
lose
that? Is
yard.
he that old? Yeah, I didn't think he was that old.
I think
Maybe he is.
he's
Maybe he
29,
is.
30, I think. Yeah. Um.
But
Okay.
yeah, they're serious injuries for players to
Yeah.
get, and he's like he was quite quick previously, but it affects everything. It affects his ability to turn quickly as well, because you lose the confidence in that
Yeah.
that knee to
Yeah.
a certain degree.
Yeah. 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 It'll take him some time, but hopefully he'll get back to it
I
because
wouldn't I wouldn't be too concerned about an 80% Van Dijk is still better than most of the centre halves in the
yeah,
Premier League. So
yeah, that is true.
I think that I don't think he'll hinder them. Put it that way.
Yeah. So Palace then. Wow. The I
Good,
mean,
good for the win. They were very good for the win.
now I must jump back to the earlier part in the season where we were talking about promotion relegation.
Yeah, I thought they'd go down. I was sure they would. I thought Vieira was a risky appointment. I thought they let too many.
They let too many
Um,
pros go.
yeah, but he's brought in. I think the Conor Gallagher. I think
Mm,
he's been brilliant. I dare say Chelsea won't be sending him out on loan next season. I think he's a real. Um, he seems like a Tuchel sort of player.
yeah,
He's got real drive from midfield, and maybe I suppose the only thing that might hinder his progress at Chelsea is the fact that he's quite similar to Mason Mount. I would have said maybe a bit quicker than Mount, but
yeah,
similar sort of position.
yeah. So it was the combination of a new manager and letting go 15 or whatever players that they did. That's I think why we were all a bit concerned about it. But I didn't list them as a relegation candidate because I just thought the players they let go were they probably needed to let
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
And he, Vieira, Premier League legend, was willing to give him a shot. But he's really, I mean, how many teams have gone to City and won 2-0 in the last 10 years or whatever?
They've beaten City uh, at the Etihad previously as well. I'm sure they have. There's something.
Yeah.
It's funny. There's certain teams that
They
kind of,
just have your number.
yeah, they do. It's real strange.
Yeah.
We had problems with the likes of Bolton there for years. They were just they come. I remember it specifically. Remember once they beat us at Old Trafford 1-0. This
Mm.
was when United were unbeatable at Old
Yeah,
Trafford.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I lost a considerable amount of money on that game that day. That's why it
It's
sticks
it's
so well in my head.
it's the bogey teams, isn't it?
Yeah, but
Now
they were good
the
for that win. You know,
yeah,
playing Wilfred Zaha up front.
yeah,
Yeah, I was listening to Simon Jordan on Talksport today, and I like him. I don't know if you've ever listened to him and Jim White on Talksport.
yeah.
I don't usually get to listen to much of it because I'm usually at work, but he speaks a lot of sense, but he does it in such a pompous, arrogant sort of way. You know,
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
he's he's very well spoken and very literate. And, you have to Google half the stuff he comes out
yeah,
with. But he made a very good point in that I think Wilfred Zaha maybe now has realised he's 29. He's probably never going to get that top four move, play Champions League
yeah.
football. So he may as well knuckle down and make the best of, he's getting
Well,
about 130, 140 grand a week there. So
he's just got to be a Palace legend, and I think he's come out in a few tweets and kind of said as much. Just do as good as you can do for Palace, and like he's had his move. He had the move to United, didn't work out for whatever reason, and that coincided with
mm.
Moisey and all this kind of stuff. But definitely excellent player, a good signing up front. Big Eddie from Celtic as well.
And
Um,
they've got Eze still has to come back into that team,
has to come
and
back.
I
Yeah.
think he's looked really good.
Now that's another bad injury, that Achilles injury that he had. So let's see what he's like after that. But the flip side of this then is Pep persisting with this non-striker. I wonder, is he gone down the route of Wenger a little bit? Like Wenger was this sort of football purist, and he removed, or thought he could win leagues and trophies with small light players and all of this. And now is Pep fixated on this? I've invented it, so I'm going to make it work, and I'm going to stick with it. Should he change? And because like you're not getting the best out of Grealish, who is a guy who will feed a striker.
Yeah,
And now
and
Grealish is probably like,
Jesus isn't really that number 9 that they're
yeah,
looking for
no,
either. He's a good player, but he's
he
not a
can't
great
lead.
player. I don't think.
He can't lead the line. He's like Martial.
But this is the thing. This is a bit like the problem that it's a problem for Spurs. They only have one recognized striker as such. One good, really good recognized striker. If he gets injured, they have nothing. West Ham, they have Michail Antonio. If he gets injured, they have nothing. Whereas Liverpool have a totally different setup. United have a totally different setup. If you're setting up your squad to have one key striker, like Aguero was theirs for years and years, and I think they maybe a little bit arrogantly thought that they were going to get Harry Kane in the summer for less than market value maybe, and that didn't work out for them. So he probably doesn't have any option at the minute other than to play this false nine. I don't, as I've said in the past, I don't rate Kevin De Bruyne as highly as most people do. Yes, he's a good footballer. He might be a very good footballer, but I think he's overrated in the Bruno Fernandes category, and I don't think he's been playing that well this season. I don't think he's played as well as he has done in the past.
Yeah, no.
And I think this is. I mean, he must be hitting 30 now as well. Which all right, 30 is not very old, but I think Pep has got a couple of problems there, and it gives maybe a slight glimmer of hope for Saturday morning. You never know.
Yeah, I think you touched on it earlier with Leicester, but I think Pep is definitely trying to bring City slowly to the boil at the business end. He'll be he'll be thinking Champions League now and bringing the team to the boil at the right time. You know, he's won the leagues a few times, so you know we'll see what happens there. But let's quickly jump into the app.
Yeah.
So we'll just do a quick update. So in case you're new to the pod, so the Bookbreakrs app is a football predictions app, and we run lots of different competitions on it. So you've got the nap competition, which is basically 5 naps and 1 banker each week. 50 quid in the weekly pot, 200 in the monthly, and 3 grand in the season long competition. The lead in the season long competition is just 95 plus 95 profit. So long way to go there. So feel free to get involved. So you can see the various leaders there. So the October competition finished yesterday. So well done to the 3 guys who all won a prize there. And the weekly competition ends tonight. So I think that hinges on the outcome of the Wolves Everton game.
It's not currently looking very good for Everton, I must say.
No. And then finally, there's 2 other competitions then. So you have the season-long competition, which is all your predictions, and you have the banker competition then. This is very interesting. So a couple of guys on here. So Alex Ferguson, Everton fan, he's gotten 10 out of 10 predictions, I think, for his banker. So definitely worth following this guy. And if you follow him, you'll get a notification whenever he makes a banker or a nat prediction. So a lot of real high scores here. So definitely guys who know their stuff. Okay, so Paul, let's quickly just touch then on the upcoming games. So you've Liverpool, West Ham. That's going to be an absolute humdinger, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think Enda even mentioned he was a bit concerned about it. I mean, you'd have to be concerned about playing West Ham at the minute. They're in form. Who would I fancy that? I mean, I'd
think that
fancy.
the reason I think it's interesting, Paul, is the whole midfield thing. So like Liverpool at the back, fine. Liverpool up front, excellent. Midfield is the problem, and that's where
That's where West Ham are
West
probably.
Ham are strongest. So
Yeah. I think Kurt Zuma was a good signing for them. I think that was a good bit of business done in the summer. They're relatively solid at the back. I don't know. I just feel like the bubble will burst at some stage for West Ham, and I probably fancy Liverpool to nick it.
Yeah, after a bad result.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and that's what fills me with dread about the Manchester derby because City aren't going to lose. I think that'd be if they were to lose to United. Oh no, I was going to say they've lost their last 2, but they'll surely beat Club Brugge in the Champions League at home this week. But I'd fancy Liverpool to sneak it.
Yeah.
I think in much the same way that Ollie had a bit of a result a bit of a result by having to play Tottenham at the weekend. It looks like if Conte does get the job, his first game will be against Everton. So he's got a fighting chance of picking up the 3 points. They've been very disappointing. Rafa's not really set the world alight, I think, and of all the places to go to not get off to a good start, you know, going to Everton when he used to manage their most bitter, hated rivals.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair to him, he's lost key players at key times. I think, you know, he started the season without Doucouré, who's probably one of the best midfielders. He's injured now again. He's been without Dominic Calvert-Lewin all season. Richarlison's been in and out and away on international duty and cold bans and this and that. Digne's been out a few times. Mina's been in and out. You know, I think definitely think he's a good manager, and I'd definitely keeping Rafa over a period of 2 to 3 years. He'll win them something. He'll win a cup or something with them.
Well, he's a quality manager. You know, I do still think there's an outside chance that he might go back to Newcastle some stage, and maybe not necessarily now, but soon. I mean, there's not been much talk about Newcastle's lack of a manager at the.
I would say there's a pre-contractual agreement been agreed with somebody there, I would say. And I would guess, if I had to guess, I'd go Rodgers. I
Do you
think
think? No, I don't know. I
I
don't
think he
know.
fits the bill perfectly.
Yeah, he probably. I mean, like he plays a style of football that would appeal to the Newcastle fans. He's managed big clubs with big players in the past. He'd he'd need to sign somebody in January to keep them up,
But
though.
it was what we were saying, wasn't it? It's bring someone in to get you to, seventh, eighth, and then bring someone else in who's elite to bring you to the top level. And he's that tier below in my view, anyway.
Do you think so? Well, you wouldn't count him as an elite manager, no?
If I saw him getting the United job, I'd be off to Salford.
I don't know because you see, for me, he'd be in the Pochettino category. Except he's won trophies. He has had success. Like I
He went
wouldn't.
to Celtic and he, you know, uh, he, as soon as he reaches the cusp of being an elite manager, it falls to shit.
Yeah, I think their failure to get into Champions League in the last couple of seasons at the last minute has kind of not looked great on the CV. But he did win the FA Cup against Chelsea. Chelsea's side, they went on to win the Champions League.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is he elite? I don't know. How many elite managers are there really out there? I mean, you look at the top three, probably Tuchel, Guardiola, and
Mm.
Klopp. They're elite. Ancelotti, I think, maybe be a little bit past the point of being elite.
No, I just think with Rodgers, he goes through these similar phases as Solskjaer, where they're setting the
Yeah,
world
yeah,
alight, and
yeah,
next thing then they'll have 4 or 5 games
yeah.
where like
No, it is a fair point.
they
Yeah.
just and it's not 4 or 5 games where they've kind of you know been edged out. It's like they'll lose 4-0 to some crap team or something, and then uh, not for me, but I think he'd be ideal for Newcastle to get that whole ship going.
I think who would actually, and I'm not even joking when I said this. I think who would be the ideal man to go in at Newcastle now?
Sean Dyche.
Sean Dyche, 100%. Sean Dyche, because I think Newcastle, that squad is better than the Burnley squad.
Mm.
I think he'll have money to spend in January, and I don't think Newcastle would get relegated with Sean Dyche there. But if Sean
Man,
Dyche does go,
Paul,
100% Burnley will.
I would love to see Sean Dyche with 100 million in his back pocket. I
Uh,
really would. I
but
really would.
I think he's absolutely perfect for the job because Sam Allardyce is past the point of being the go-to man to keep you up. Like his perfect record went when West Brom went down, and I don't think we'll see him back at the top level management again. I think I'd have concerns about bringing a Brendan Rodgers or a Steven Gerrard or any of these people who are being linked with that job.
Yeah, and
I'd
and
have
and
concerns at this point.
guys who haven't been down that end of the table, definitely.
Yeah, yeah, and Deutsch is
So
yeah. So I mean,
yeah,
I think I think he'd be ideal for the job. I don't necessarily believe he'll get offered it because he's not the this sort of stylish name that they want. But what they need to do is stay in the Premier League because if they get
yeah,
relegated,
and
what a bad investment that'll turn out to be.
there's no guarantees of coming straight back up, not from the champ.
But no, except they would have an infinite amount of money to spend in the championship, and they couldn't
Yeah,
fail to get back up. But
probably. Yeah,
yeah, watch this space.
indeed. Okay, Paul, that was that was.
It's a
That
bit
was
longer than we thought.
if this was a meeting in a company, it'd be one of the worst run meetings ever. We've gone completely off, and this happened before on the previous pod we did, where it was just the two of us. We just
Just keep rambling on. Yeah.
rambled on about United for far too long. But thanks for your time again, and next week we'll have Enda back in the car of knowledge, and we'll go at it again. All right. So until next time, ciao.
Cheerio.